It'll be up to you in 28 days. You have the power to decide the future, or at least the immediate future of this country. Now, coming up, we're going to break down tonight the single most critical races, state by state, district by district, with the successful confirmation now of Justice Kavanaugh. Republicans are picking up steam as we head towards the finish line. And meanwhile, sore loser Hillary Clinton is now inserting herself into the political fray yet again. She's calling literally for incivility. And we've got the tape. We also have the latest examples of the left's mob action, angry mob in action, including some traffic blocking demonstrations in Portland, Oregon. First, before we have all of this major breaking deep state news tonight, we will put all the pieces together. Rod Rosenstein is in hot water, as are others, and we can officially connect all these dots between the FISA abuse and the Clinton campaign, and of course, all the corruption before and after the election. All right, sit tight, buckle up. We have a lot to get to in tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, so the Democrats, they turned the confirmation process into a circus. We watched this for 3 weeks. They vilified Judge Kavanaugh, tried to ruin his life. They turned an angry mob against him. They thought through all of this, the president might give up. But the president stood by his nominee. And in doing so, he stood up for the core principles of our system of justice: due process, the Constitution, presumption of innocence, equal application of our laws, and frankly, simple common sense. Now, at tonight's huge rally in Iowa, the president congratulated the newest member of the United States Supreme Court and so much more. Let's take a look.
Yesterday at the White House, we proudly swore in the newest member of the United States Supreme Court, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And today, Justice Kavanaugh took his seat alongside of Justice Gorsuch to defend your rights, your Constitution, and your God-given freedom. And I want to thank our incredible Republican senators for refusing to back down in the face of the Democrats' shameful campaign of political and personal destruction.
I don't think the crowd in Iowa is sick of winning. And on his first official day as a Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh, he hit the ground running. Now, despite being described by the left as an enemy of all women, well, Justice Kavanaugh became the single first member of the Supreme Court to hire an all-female staff of law clerks. Now, the left has been completely exposed, the double standard, the hypocrisy, and by the way, the mainstream media, they're not exactly taking it well. It actually reminds me a little bit of election night 2 years ago. The collective state of shock. And by the way, you can shock the world in 28 days again. Take a look.
The idea of holding a victory rally like this, for Justice Kavanaugh to say the court should not be a partisan institution, but then stand there and thank mainly Republicans. Joe Manchin got a shout out for his vote. It's just not something that's supposed to happen.
Remember his divisive language tonight at Justice Kavanaugh swearing in? Proof that this president is our divider in chief.
Time and again, when the president gets a chance to heal the country, he does just the opposite.
My question to you is how you would sum up what you saw yesterday happening in the East Room at the White House.
It was graceless.
Now, in a moment, we're going to show you how Kavanaugh is impacting these all-important upcoming midterm elections. We'll also discuss the news surrounding the outgoing UN ambassador, Nikki Haley. She announced her resignation earlier today. And there are rumors tonight the former Deputy National Security Advisor, Dina Powell, may replace Haley. But first, we do have some major breaking news surrounding the deep state and, of course, Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier. Let's go through this slowly. By now, you know this infamous dossier, bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign and the DNC. Remember, they funneled money through a law firm. The law firm's name was Perkins Coie. Well, that money was then used not for law, but it was sent to an op research firm called Fusion GPS. They then hired a foreign national, a spy by the name of Christopher Steele. He dug up Russian dirt on Donald Trump. never corroborated. Even Steele himself said the contents in the dossier were unverified at best. And in fact, well, in an interrogatory in Great Britain under threat of perjury, Steele refused to stand by the validity in his own dossier, giving it a confidence rating of only 50-50. And last week, well, lost in the chaos of the Kavanaugh confirmation, we first learned that a lawyer working for the Clinton campaign and the DNC at Perkins Coie was actually funneling some of this anti-Trump, unverified Russian lies and propaganda to the top lawyer at the FBI, James Baker, in 2016. Now, this all came out, quote, as federal investigators prepared a surveillance warrant for the Trump campaign and Carter Page. Remember, that was all based on the phony dossier. Now, Baker, who you see there, first revealed his exchange during a closed-door deposition with congressional investigators just last Wednesday. And, of course, this is exactly what we have now been telling you on this program and all along. We now have confirmation. So you have a top lawyer for the Clinton campaign actively working with the top lawyer at the FBI to surveil a Trump campaign associate based on Hillary's phony bought and paid for dossier. I've said from early on, it is the biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in American history. Now, tonight, it gets even worse. According to now separate reports, Catherine Herridge, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, Rod Rosenstein was completely serious when he talked about surveilling President Trump, hoping that he might get information that they can then invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him from office. Now, Rosenstein's remarks were not just said in jest, as he's now saying, or even sarcastically. Now, this reportedly was revealed in last week's deposition of James Baker before Congress. In other words, the top lawyer at the FBI. Now, that seemingly confirms the September report from the New York Times, where they revealed that Rod Rosenstein, he had an alleged plot to surveil his boss, President Trump, in early 2017. By the way, before we ever had or heard of a special counsel or Robert Mueller. Now, remember, it's the Deputy FBI Director McCabe, now under criminal investigation, his attorney, Lisa Page. They are saying they both witnessed and chronicled Rod Rosenstein talking about wearing a wire against the president. Now, this is beyond troubling. Well, of course, we know all of Rod Rosenstein's other conflicts. He recommended firing Comey. He signed the final FISA warrant. You know, he's caught up in every aspect of this. But we have one more piece to what is a very disturbing puzzle. It's now perfectly clear that members of our bureaucracy were actively trying to destroy both candidate and then later President Trump in what was a coordinated effort with an opposing political campaign and what they called, remember we reported a few weeks ago, their media leak strategy. Now, all of this means Hillary's bought and paid for phony Russian dossier that was never verified, never corroborated, used to get FISA warrants. All of these lies basically disseminated to you, the American people, to influence you before the 2016 election and used to commit a fraud on FISA court judges to get a warrant on a Trump campaign associate. And after all that failed, Donald Trump wins. Then the contents of the unverified phony Russian dossier that Hillary paid for, remember, they leaked it to the media outlets. Why? So all the phony news, well, that would create an atmosphere whereby people could begin to call for a special counsel to be appointed, just like James Comey was leaking to his professor friend at Columbia. Now, this is plain, simple, fundamental, basic abuse of power. Corruption at the highest levels of the DOJ and the FBI. It shreds our Constitution, our Fourth Amendment protections when they use a fraud on a FISA court. Now, we have a lot to get to regarding this. Sarah Carter, Gray Jarrett, John Solomon, Catherine Herridge, all here on this developing story. But our real top story tonight, 4 weeks from tonight, in 28 days, you, the American people, we, the people, will decide the fate of your government. Now, America's biggest sore loser, Hillary Clinton, is now throwing herself back into the political fray. Apparently, she's going to make a lot of money doing so. Once again, demonizing conservatives. Remember, we're all irredeemable, deplorable, smelly Walmart people. We cling to God, our guns, our Bibles, our religion. Oh, here's what she said. This is the latest.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
Oh, but in the meantime, no civility, calling for incivility. We have angry mobs of left-wing protesters in Portland, Oregon, recently blocking traffic, attacking commuters. Meanwhile, Portland's liberal mayor did zero to stop this. Take a look.
Because I told you to.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Don't hurt.
Yeah, brother.
Just go.
Yeah, you little white little.
Really?
Yeah, you're a white little whitey, aren't you? The First Amendment. Get the road.
Please just keep going the direction.
Just please turn right
Please
for
the
sake.
direction I asked you.
Just turn right.
Please, you're blocking traffic and they're getting this. Oh, we're blocking traffic. You can turn.
Pretty despicable. What you're seeing here, though, sadly, is nothing new. We saw similar response from far-left anti-Kavanaugh protesters. We saw Republican politicians confronted all over the country, run out of restaurants. Pam Bondi, Secretary Nielsen, Sarah Sanders, Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell. Literally, they're being told to get in people's faces in grocery stores and gas stations. And it's happening over and over and over again. Now, this, when you look at it, accompanied by a systematic effort from elected Democrats to destroy the life and character of Judge Brett Kavanaugh based on zero corroboration from nearly 4 decades ago, no due process, no presumption of innocence, no common sense. This is why in 28 days you'll have a choice of electing the party of smears and slander and lies, character assassination, besmirchment, the party of bludgeoning people. And as we speak, they are deploying this playbook all over the country. I warned you, we see it every 2 years and every 4 years in every election. Any Republican running for office is a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, that wants dirty air, water, wants to kill children and throw granny over the cliff. And sadly, nearly all voices of reason in the Democratic Party, they even ran out of their party Joe Lieberman, one of the nicest guys in the world. All moderation is gone. All moderates are gone. This is now a hardcore, far-left, radical, extreme leftist political party. But don't take my word for it. Just listen to the DNC chair. His name is Tom Perez. By the way, right below him is the guy he's defending by the name of Keith Ellison. Take a look.
And when you see the union movement attacked by Republicans day in and day out, when we see that there are no guardrails in Washington, I mean, we know that for sure. There are no moderate Democrats, basically, left, moderate Republicans left in the United States.
He got it perfectly right. No moderate Democrats. Look, I'm going to be very honest. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict what news you will hear 4 weeks from tonight. Frankly, I'm concerned for the sake of the country. I don't want the great progress we've been chronicling here on this program to end. I like the security, America on a world stage, once again leading the way, not leading from behind. I like that we're not trying to bribe dictators that chant death to America. I'm confident and happy that little rocket man's not firing rockets over Japan every other day. I'm not confident tonight. I can't tell you that Republicans will hold the House or the Senate or pick up seats in the Senate. Now, recently, our friend, Fox News contributor, former Congressman Jason Chaffetz, talked about a pretty horrible nightmare scenario for the country. Now, imagine waking up 1 week from tomorrow, on November 7th, the day after our Election Day, and seeing the soon-to-be Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, measuring drapes for a brand-new office. Imagine Chairwoman Maxine Waters, head of the Judiciary Committee. Imagine the liar-in-chief, the chairman, Shifty Schiff, taking control of the Intel Committee, a guy that got scammed by a Russian hoaxer himself. Imagine the endless, never-ending investigations into Trump, Kavanaugh, the quest, the thirst they have for impeachment, and the obstruction of all the progress we have had in the president's successful agenda. By the way, kiss border wall funding goodbye. Prepare to fork over your hard-earned money because they want their crumbs back and they're coming for them. By the way, you like skyrocketing health care costs and premiums? Obamacare, they want to keep it. How's that promise working out for you? Keep your doctor, keep your plan, save money. Is this what you want? That's the question you will be deciding 4 weeks from tonight. Now, starting tonight, we're going to preview each key House race that's going to decide the fate of our government going forward. We'll highlight 10 important races a night. We start on the West Coast tonight. Multiple House races are up for grabs. Look there. If you're in the California 10th Congressional District, listen up. We're talking to you, Republican incumbent Congressman Jeff Denham. He's in a tight re-election bid where water access, a top issue on the ballot. California's 21st District, a Republican incumbent named David Valadao. Well, he's doing well in a race against the Democrat T.J. Cox in a district where Hispanic Americans make up 74% of that district. California 25, another Republican incumbent named Steve Knight in a very tough key race against the Democratic challenger, Katie Hill. In California's 39th district, Republican Young Kim and Democrat Gil Cisneros, they're facing off in a battle for an open seat that was vacated by Congressman Ed Royce. The Democrat is currently suffering in the polls, perhaps due to an allegation of, well, believe it or not, sexual misconduct. In California 45, Republican incumbent Mimi Waters is running for re-election against Democrat Katie Porter. In California's 48th district, friend of mine, friend of this program, incumbent Dana Rohrabacher facing a Democratic challenge from Harley Rhoda. And with the retirement of Congressman Darrell Issa, California's 49th district, that's a hotly contested race between Republican Diane Harkey and Democrat Mark Levin. In California 50, Republican incumbent Duncan Hunter, he's up in an all-important race in the San Diego area. Next up, you go to Arizona, their first congressional district. Democratic incumbent named Tom O'Halloran is up for re-election against a Republican challenger. That would be Wendy Rogers in a district that President Trump only carried by 1 point. And finally tonight, we have Arizona 2, vacated by Martha McSally, a hero who fought for this country, who's running for Senate in a very tight race there for the Senate. The Republican in that case, Leah Marquez Peterson, is running against Democrat Ann Kirkpatrick. So we will point out 10 key races a night, so you know if it's your district that matters. These districts will decide the balance of power 4 weeks from tonight. And of course, the U.S. Senate, that's up for grabs. Maybe another Supreme Court nomination or two in the future. Now, you got money from big-time Democratic billionaires piling in all over the country. Let's start in Indiana. Incumbent Democrat Joe Donnelly in a tight race against Mike Braun. That's a state President Trump won. Braun is running a great campaign. Donnelly, as you know, voted against Judge Kavanaugh. He's a Schumer Democrat. Missouri, another Schumer incumbent Democrat, Claire McCaskill. She's now losing ground in the polls against Josh Hawley, who's running a great race after she opposed Judge Kavanaugh. North Dakota, another Schumer suck-up, Democrat Senator Heidi Heitkamp, way down in the polls against Kevin Cramer. He's running a great campaign. Obviously, in Texas, Ted Cruz, a constitutional conservative. Thankfully, he's consistently polling ahead. That's an important race. In Tennessee, Republican, friend of this program, Marsha Blackburn, she's also picking up after the president's visit, after the vote for Judge Kavanaugh, momentum in the polls there, an extremely important state. In Montana, Democratic incumbent Chucky Schumer, BFF, John Tester, tight race against Matt Rosendale. A real chance for a pickup in Montana this year. Arizona, a very, very, very tight race. Is an American hero, served her country, Martha McSally. I hope the people of Arizona will put her in the U.S. Senate. Now that brings us to West Virginia and Democrat Joe Manchin, the only Democrat to vote to confirm Justice Kavanaugh. I have an idea. Maybe he should switch parties and caucus with the Republicans. He'd definitely win re-election. Otherwise, that race may be in doubt. Joe, just saying. Each night on this program, we will bring you an update on what is the single most important midterm election in our lifetime. 28 days. And at the end of the day, we the people, you the American people, have the power to decide. Are we going to reward the disgusting, despicable smear tactics of the left? You'll decide if the angry mob gets their way. You'll decide whether or not Nancy Pelosi is the next Speaker of the House. With a booming historic economy, security at home and abroad, the choice tonight could not be any more clear. 4 weeks from tonight, you will tune into the news. You have the ability and the power to shock the world again. When we come back, we have reaction to our monologue, plus all the other breaking news on the deep state. Dan Bongino, Sebastian Gorka. As we continue, we're glad you're always with us tonight on Hannity. Now with reaction to our opening monologue, all the important news of the day. See this book right here? This is an important book. 4 weeks from tonight, Why We Fight. He's talking about on foreign policy, but it also represents domestic policies, defeating America's enemies. No apologies. Fox News national security strategist Dr. Sebastian Gorka, the author of the new book Spygate, the attempted sabotage of Donald J. Trump, also a soon-to-be bestseller. Our friend, former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino. Both books, by the way, out today. They're now competing like Judge Janine and Greg Carrot.
Right.
Both must-reads. I've read both of them. They're phenomenal books. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you, sir.
28 days. One of the things you're talking about in this book, Dr. Gorka, is the need to fight. I made this case in a book I wrote in 2004, Deliver Us from Evil, Defeating Terrorism, Despotism, and Liberalism. What I meant by that, and I took a lot of heat at the time, was if you don't have the political power, you can't impact change. 4 weeks matters.
Right. And you can't protect the things that you love. This is the important thing. The left has a plan to destroy all the institutions we love, whether it's the media, whether it's education. They've been doing it for 40 years now. Look at the colleges. I'll give you a metric. The Victims of Communism Foundation did a poll. 42% of millennials, 42%, wish that America were a socialist country.
It's frightening.
25% can't tell you why Auschwitz is important. It's shocking.
Look, but I got to give a little credence to what Winston Churchill infamously said. If you're 20 and not a liberal, you don't have a heart.
Yes.
If you're 40 and not a liberal, you don't have a brain. Dan Bongino, we're going to get into the deep state story tonight, but everything that we have witnessed for the last 2 years, culminating in the last 3 weeks with Judge Kavanaugh, has been smear, slander, attack, belittle, delegitimize Donald Trump. This election is about keeping what is now chronicled a hugely successful agenda moving forward. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell people tonight that Nancy Pelosi is not going to win. All the people talking about a blue wave, I don't trust them. The American people can shock the world again, but I don't know. What do you think?
Sean, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that the Kavanaugh victory may have changed everything for the Republicans. Let me just give you a quick example and put some meat on the bone there. Trump and the Kavanaugh victory finally broke the Iron Triangle, right? That's Fred Siegel's old line. The Iron Triangle. What's the Iron Triangle? The media, activist groups, and swamp rats, right? Democrat, liberal swamp rats. They have owned the Republican Party forever. What were the old rules, right? The media, in conjunction with the activist groups, would lob a grenade on the battlefield, a political grenade, in this case calling the guy a rapist, a horrible thing. The Republicans would run, they'd ask Kavanaugh to pull his name.
Rapist and almost on a weekly basis,
a train rape.
Drug, lined up boys in the hole to gang rape women. That, I mean,
but they
among the allegations.
But Sean, it didn't happen. This time it didn't happen. Trump refused to back down. Kavanaugh refused to back down. They coalesced with McConnell up on the Hill. And shockingly, we won. There's a model to win going forward. There's a new sheriff in town.
Well, there are opportunities in North Dakota, in Indiana, in Missouri, in Florida, and other places. There are important races in Nevada, in Arizona. They can pick up seats here, Dr. Gorka. There is hope.
They can, but only if they understand what changed. Dan is absolutely right. The political landscape has changed. Remember that press conference on Friday with the leading Republican senators. I have never seen senior senators that angry in my lifetime in America. They were fed. The GOP has woken up. Now the question is, can they connect those races to the president? This is a vote about the president in the last 2 years.
One of the reasons there's so much uncertainty, you got all of these retirements to contend with. I talked about Darrell Issa out in California. These are new names on the ballot for people. That's why we're trying to highlight it on the program so people The American people will be informed when they walk into the ballot.
And everybody has to understand every single vote counts. The idea that I'm somewhere where it doesn't count, look at what changed in 2016. Places that we thought Trump had no chance of winning, and he won. So don't be complacent.
The attempted sabotage of Trump, as I read your book, Dan, it really has been. This has been an effort before the election, during the transition, and the entire time he's been president to undermine, delegitimize, stop him. In spite of all of that, we have record unemployment in 14 states, record low unemployment for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, women in the workforce, youth unemployment. We have more regulations destroyed. He's already building the border wall with the $3.5 billion he does have. He seems to be the president that believes in keeping promises as quickly as he can.
Yeah, I'm smiling because winning feels good, doesn't it? I mean, it feels good to win. Yeah, no, I'm not sick of it either. Still not sick of winning. But that's what we cover in the book, that despite all of this, Sean, we break this whole Spygate thing down very simply. And what we do is we use leftist footnotes from like CNN and the Washington Post to show how it was an information laundering scandal, a spying operation, and a setup the whole time. You cannot come to any other conclusion when you're done with it.
So when you buy Dan's book, you buy Dr. Gorka's book. Now we'll see who wins.
Buy them both.
Janine and Greg Jarrett both made #1 on the New York Times list. So we expect you guys to, that's a tall order to duplicate. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, speaking of the deep state news, speaking of undermining the president, what we have now discovered today will blow your mind. Catherine Herridge, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, John Solomon, they will break it all down and make it understandable. It's news you won't get anywhere else. We're glad you're with us. We'll continue. Stein saga, a lot of news has been breaking in the last 24 hours. Fox News chief intelligence correspondent, our own Catherine Herridge, has been all over it today. Catherine.
Sean, Baker's testimony matters because he had a pivotal role at the Bureau as the top FBI lawyer. He had the ear of then-Director James Comey, and his testimony is at odds with Rosenstein's denials. Last week, he told Fox News he couldn't get into it.
Mr. Baker, did you handle the dossier? Did you warn Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein that there was exculpatory information before he signed the final surveillance warrant? Mr. Baker, will you take our questions?
But since sources describe Baker's testimony as forthcoming, deliberate, and sober, Baker telling congressional investigators that he believed then acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe and then FBI lawyer Lisa Page when they said Rosenstein's talk about recording the president and removing him from office was, quote, serious. Baker, who was not at the Justice Department meeting, said Page and McCabe came to him immediately after, and based on what he learned, Baker told investigators he believed Rosenstein was working with two people inside the administration after President Trump fired FBI Director James Comey to invoke the 25th Amendment. Asked about Baker's closed-door interview with Justice Department spokesperson, so they stood by their denials, including this one from Rosenstein. I never pursued or authorized recording the president, and any suggestion that I have ever advocated for the removal of the president is absolutely false. Rosenstein is expected on Capitol Hill Thursday, but our sources report tonight that there's a lot of internal tension among committee members about the format, with some lawmakers pushing for a transcribed interview with a court reporter and others satisfied by a briefing, but these briefings can often be the subject of misinterpretation, Sean.
Unbelievable reporting. Catherine Herridge, thank you from Washington tonight. Joining us now with more reaction, author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Also, Fox News investigative reporter, contributor Sarah Carter, and from the Hill, John Solomon. Sarah and John, I'll start with both of you in the reporting, and Greg has a column coming out tomorrow that he shared with me. What both of you and Catherine have all reported today is that you have McCabe and you have Lisa Page all saying that when Rod Rosenstein, Sarah, we'll start with you, said that he wanted to surreptitiously record the president of the United States, and this would be a plot, a revenge, if you will, against the firing of James Comey, which he recommended, which is ironic. They're saying it's real. Rosenstein is saying it's not real. I was only saying it sarcastically. Well, we got 2 against 1, but you got 2 people that are in the deep state. Who do you believe?
Well, this is why we've got to come to the truth. Somebody is lying here. But look, Sean, we have the former general counsel for the FBI, James Baker. This is so important because James Baker delivered this testimony deliberately, without any emotion. He absolutely 100% believed Andrew McCabe and Lisa Page. I think even more shocking is that there are two other people within the administration, apparently, who were on board with Rod Rosenstein and trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, saying that the president was unfit for office. So there is something happening within the administration, and Rod Rosenstein has those answers. Thursday is going to be very telling. Will he show up? Will he answer all these questions? And who is actually investigating the investigators? I keep saying this over and over again, Sean. If Rod Rosenstein is in charge of the special counsel, the Mueller investigation, who's in charge of Rod Rosenstein? He is in the middle of all of this. He signed the FISA, the final FISA warrant on Carter Page. He actually wrote the letter to to give the president so that Comey would be fired. He laid it all out. This guy is in the middle of everything, and somebody needs to find out the truth because he's still, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States.
John Solomon, and by the way, to answer Sarah's question, who's investigating the investigators, all of us have been from the beginning. It started with both of you, to be honest. Led to Greg's #1 New York Times bestseller. But this sounds like a soft coup, revenge taken out on a president. You have two people that both recorded the very same thing here, John, about what Rod Rosenstein said at the time. That's McCabe, but he's under criminal investigation, and Page, friends with Strzok, that thinks, Hillary should win 100 million to 0.
Yeah, listen, just a short while ago, Sean, as I was coming over to the show, I bumped in, ironically, to an old FBI friend of mine. And here's what he said. After reading your articles the last couple of weeks, I'm starting to think the FBI needs to rebrand itself. Instead of Federal Bureau of Investigation, maybe we should call ourselves the Federal Bureau of Politics. Because somewhere there was a lot more politics going on than investigating.
But, John, I really need to say this. This is only the top echelon. Yeah, this is not the rank and file. This is not the guy you ran into.
That's right. No, they're embarrassed by this because they do their job every day. They go listen, in the middle of Russia, you had one team doing the hacking investigation, professional intelligence work, the other team doing collusion, a total disaster. But let's think about James Baker for just a second. 4 things he revealed. He used the Democratic Party's lawyer as a source. The FBI tried to hide that by redacting it and claiming it was national security information in the House Intelligence Report. He used a journalist as a source, David Corn, to get a version of the dossier after Steele was fired. And he was present for a conversation where at least the FBI people were serious about removing the president and recording him under the 25th Amendment. All 4 of those things are politics. None of them involve legitimate investigation.
And every piece of this goes back to Hillary, who they exonerated without investigating and saved because it was a slam dunk obstruction of justice case. It all comes back to her phony Russian paid for dossier. Before the election, they lied to the American people. After the election, they used it to bludgeon Donald Trump and use a media leak strategy to help set up an atmosphere where a special counsel could be appointed. And still, even Lisa Page said, 9 months, 0 evidence by the time we got to May of 2017. Greg, you have a column coming out tomorrow. I want to read the first paragraph to our audience here. When you talk, how is it possible Rod Rosenstein is still in charge of the special counsel investigation and Trump-Russia collusion? Again, no evidence. Then you say, Trump may have given him a pass, referring to the meeting he had on Air Force One yesterday, for now. But Americans should not, and neither should the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who seems perpetually missing in action and clueless, which I sadly can't disagree with, and I always liked him.
Rosenstein is hopelessly compromised. He not only has disqualifying conflicts of interest because he's a key pivotal witness in the case over which he presides, and you can't be a judge and the jury and a witness and the prosecutor all rolled into one. It's a violation of federal regulations. It demands his removal and recusal, 28 U.S.C. 528. But on top of it, now there's this new evidence in 3 witnesses that in an act of vengeance for the firing of Comey, he's trying to secretly record the President of the United States and depose him in the equivalent of a palace coup I mean, this is egregious misconduct. It requires his termination, at the very least, the removal from the special counsel case.
We need the declassification.
Oh, sure. And he
and the
continues,
unredacted FISA and the 302s and.
He is suppressing wrongdoing by the FBI and the Department of Justice and suppressing his own wrongdoing in signing off on the FISA warrant.
Sarah, John, do you agree with the characterization? Because I agree with Greg. I believe this was an attempt to literally set a president up for a soft coup.
100%, Sean. There is overwhelming evidence, not just circumstantial anymore. We've seen it in writing. We've seen it with testimony that's been provided to Congress. This was a white coup, a silent coup, a bloodless coup. I think what's so concerning to me is how dangerous this has been to America, how dangerous this still is to the administration, and it needs to be investigated. It has to be either a special counsel or someone else.
John?
Yeah, listen, the single biggest threat Rod Rosenstein faces isn't the plot that he didn't carry out to remove Trump. It's the misleading of the FISA court. Catherine Herridge asked him the right question. Someone has to answer that question. Did he mislead the FISA court? If it's yes, he doesn't belong there.
Who do we believe here? Do you believe McCabe and Page, or do you believe Rod Rosenstein?
I'll never believe Rod Rosenstein. He has a long and distinguished track record of deception.
John?
Listen, I think you got to wait till all the facts come out. We haven't heard from Rod Rosenstein himself. It's one thing for a spokesperson to put out a statement. He's got to put his word on it, and then we have to hear what he has to say about it.
And Sarah?
I don't believe any of them, Sean, and I think it needs to be investigated.
Sad. Biggest abuse of power in our history. We will get to the bottom of it. We're going to stay on it. Anyway, thank you all. When we come back, you won't believe what Hillary Clinton said about Bill Clinton's infidelities. Jedediah Bila, Monica Crowley next. Also, Kristen Fisher in Washington tonight with some breaking news. That's straight ahead. Stay with us. Update on Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's former staffer who put Republicans' personal information online. Fox News correspondent in Washington tonight, Kristen Fisher. Kristen.
Hey, Sean, yeah, things are not looking good for this former staffer to a Democratic congresswoman. Today, he was denied bail. The judge said prosecutors showed that no conditions could ensure the community's safety if the suspect was released. Now, his name is Jackson Costco. He's 27 years old, and he's accused of committing several felonies. He's accused of releasing a Republican senator's personal information online during the September 27th Judiciary Committee hearing about sexual assault allegations against then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. He's also accused of threatening a witness, unlawfully accessing a government computer, burglary of a senatorial office, and he's accused of doing all of this while working as a staffer for Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. He was arrested 6 days ago after a staffer caught him working on a computer where he was not authorized to be. According to a Capitol Police officer's affidavit, Costco threatened the staffer, and then he threatened to leak information about the health of senators' children and their social security numbers. So, Sean, he is facing some very serious accusations, but today he pleaded not guilty on all counts.
All right, Kristen Fisher in Washington, thank you. And also tonight, Hillary Clinton sat down with fake news, CNN, and openly called for incivility towards Republicans. We played that in our monologue here with reaction. See this brand new book, by the way, just out. And it's literally Do Not Disturb, How I Ghosted My Cell Phone to Take My Life Back. Our old friend went to The View. Thank God you're back. I don't know how you survived. Yeah. How did you survive that? And also, Jedediah Bila and conservative columnist, senior fellow, London Center for Policy Research, Monica Crowley. What does it mean you ghosted your cell phone?
So this is, if you love personal responsibility, this is the book for you. I had a tech addiction. I went from being a normal person who was talking to people, having conversations, to someone who was buried in my phone all day. The technology and our addiction to it, it's ruining the moral fibers of relationships in this country. Kids don't know how to communicate with each other anymore. There's so many skill sets they're losing. And and a lot of people say, Sean, regulate the problem away. This was my way of saying, no, own your own life. We are self-empowered. This is a personal responsibility book of how you can take technology in 2018 and make it your own and make it healthy for you.
I gave up Twitter. My phone does not have Twitter. I don't have any Twitter.
That's good. You ghosted your phone. That's what you did.
I didn't ghosted.
You ghosted
well, to be honest, I have so many people trying to hack into me every day. Have to change phones every other day. Yeah. That's actually, would you ever do that?
Completely give it up?
No.
Well, not completely give it
It's
up.
like we're drug addicts.
I agree that it's an addiction.
It is.
It's like heroin or sugar. I mean, you cannot, it's like Pavlov's response. And especially with kids
All right.
now, it's actually rewiring
Let
their
me
brain.
ask you this question. I don't have a crystal ball 4 weeks from tonight. You've been saying for the longest time you think Republicans hold the House, pick up seats in the Senate. I hope you're right. I think anything is possible right now, and the energy level's high.
Yes, and the whole Kavanaugh scenario really scrambled the political calculus for both sides. The complacency problem that the Republicans had is now solved thanks to the Democrats and their despicable treatment of Brett Kavanaugh. We have a new Supreme Court justice, but it has scrambled the calculus here. I've been saying for months that I was totally against conventional wisdom, still is, but I think that the Republicans will hold the House narrowly, but will hold, and we will pick up seats in the Senate, and it will stun everybody the way the 2016 result did.
It's worth it just to see Joe Scarborough Mika's face. It would be worth it just for that reason alone. I don't know what's going to happen, but the Democrats should not be rewarded for how they act every 2 and 4 years and what they just did.
Right. Well, the Kavanaugh stuff was incredible because I talked to so many people who aren't even that political that were so outraged by the behavior that Democrats exhibited toward him that sat home and said, wait a minute, what happened to presumption of innocence? Wait a minute, what happened to our justice system that these people are willing to throw this guy under the bus before you have any corroboration, before you have any evidence? So I think that's the key. You know, you need those people at home who aren't typically inspired politically to get out.
Her assessment on the outcome?
I think it could happen. I don't know. I truthfully don't know. I think it's very plausible. I don't know. And it depends on how many people at home are fired up at how the Democrats are behaving, calling for inciting violence sometimes. It's insanity.
And how they treat
American people. We are still a center-right country, and these kinds of antics outrage, especially the middle of the country, and they will come out.
100% true.
By the way, ghost your cell phone. Good to see you both. All right, we have more highlights from the president's rally earlier in Iowa. That's straight ahead. Why they must vote for Republicans 4 weeks from tonight.
Vote for Republicans. You're doing the right thing because a vote for us is a vote for lower taxes, less regulation, and more products that are made right here in the USA. That's what we're doing. It's a vote to respect our borders, respect our Constitution, and respect the heroes of law enforcement.
All right, that's unfortunately all the time we have left. We'll be fair and balanced 4 weeks from tonight. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham is next.